We've reached another big milestone for the Famicom. This is the final game on the system based on the works of Fujiko F. Fujio. The creator of Doraemon was a huge cultural force in the second half of the 20th century for Japan, and this is the 6th Famicom game based on one of his comics. Perman was one of his earliest works, and it's about a boy who gets a costume from an alien that turns him into a superhero. But if anyone were to discover his true identity, the costume would stop working and he'd lose all memories of ever being a superhero. Irem's already released one Perman game, which is why this would be Perman Part 2. It was a relatively straightforward platformer. Perman Part 2 changes up the formula dramatically, and I think it's a much better game for it. The game has a subtitle, Himitsu Kesha Mamodan o Taose, which roughly means defeat the Mado Society. The plot of the game is that a scientist had vanished, and Perman thinks that his reoccurring villains, the Mado Society, is behind it. Before each of the game's 6 stages, you have the opportunity to choose which character you'll play as. There's absolutely no difference between them, so just pick the color that you like. Perman Part 2 has multiple game modes, and what you're doing will vary a little bit on every stage. In the side-scrolling action sections, you hit the B button to attack, the A button to jump, and if you hit A again while you're in the air, you'll start flying. You can freely move around wherever you like. Though once you start moving, you'll keep moving until you hit the A button to hover in place. Hit the A button again while you're hovering to land on the ground. Most stages will require that you do some navigation using flight. You're going to have to fly through a lot of obstacle courses in this game. Some areas of Perman are played from an overhead view, and the controls are generally the same, though you can no longer fly. Jumping will get you over some attacks as well. In either side-scrolling or overhead mode, you might come across some P-doors. Entering one of these will take you to a bonus room. The rooms filled with boxes will have power-ups for your attacks, and you'll need to smash the boxes to find those. But be careful, because some of the boxes have enemies hidden in them. You start the game only able to punch, but after you pick up these power-ups, you'll gain a ranged attack. And there are multiple levels of the ranged attacks, and as you increase the level, the range increases. When you have multiple kinds of weapons, you can press start to change which one you're using, though really, it's just aesthetics. You've got a super punch, a freeze beam, an inflation gun, a transformation gun, and if you collect all of the weapons and level them up, then you get a super blaster. Another thing you can find behind the P-doors are these tile rooms, where your goal is to step on every tile in the area once. That means figuring out the path that will take you through the whole area. If you can successfully complete the whole maze, then you're rewarded with either a bit of health or an extra life. And if you can't, well then you can just go in the door and try again. The final thing you could find behind the P-doors is a memory game, where all you have to do is find all the matching tiles. You keep trying until you fail to find a pair 3 times, or you turn over an X. And since they show you all the tiles when you start, this one's pretty easy. Successfully complete this stage and you'll get some more health or an extra life. The first stage in Perman has you scaling a skyscraper in the side-scrolling view, but you can also enter the building for an overhead view. The second stage is played almost entirely from the side view, as you have to fly through a maze of traps. And the third stage is also played from a side view, but you're going through a cavern. The fourth stage is a haunted castle that you play from an overhead point of view. And then the fifth stage is again an overhead view as you explore a flying saucer. Perman Part 2 is a very easy game. I haven't played it in a long while, and in the hour I was recording, I died once. And you revive exactly where you were. They practically throw extra lives at you as long as you complete all the bonus rooms. You are given a password if you get a game over so that you could continue from that stage, but there really isn't a need for it. Perman Part 2 seems to be incredibly obscure in Japan, Just a game that absolutely nobody remembers. But here's the thing, I kinda like this one. Yeah, it's kind of too easy. But that mainly comes down to how much extra health and lives they throw at you. Without that, the game would be relatively challenging. But as it stands, you've got a pretty good mix of action and thinking. Because you're flying through hazardous mazes, the flight abilities wind up being pretty fun, and although the levels are sprawling, you really can't get lost in them. Perman Part 2 is pretty good. A nice way to bring a close to Fujiko F. Fujio's games on the system.